Well, I have some furniture books and some sewing machine feet. The sewing machine feet are old Singer feet. Some of them are just really interesting. This one is a binder foot. It attaches a seam binding and will make a piped edge on a garment almost automatically. This one, well, I'm not going to take it out. I'm pretty sure that's an automatic gathering foot. And this all came from Colleen in the box she sent last week. By the way, as many of you know, I went out and got myself a wonderful vintage sewing machine. And these are going to do very nicely on that machine. So today I thought we would do something a little different, and we are just going to focus on these books. So when we come back, we are going to get right into it. Well, I got some books in the box that Colleen sent last week, and we're going to take a quick look at a couple of them and a more detailed look at the third. This is the Concise Encyclopedia of American Antiques. I'm familiar with this book. This came out in 1979, so we're looking at a piece that's about 40 years old, and it goes back. For example, Brewster chair is as early as about 1630. So we are going back to the earliest of American furniture in this piece. Court cupboards, presses, stools like this, among the very earliest bits of American furniture. And then we're moving into Chippendale pieces, card tables, tea tables, chairs. There's our tea table. And we'll take a look at that later. Next up, we have the Ladies' Home Journal Book of Interior Decoration. 1954 on this one. So it's the year I was born. What we're going to see in this book is mid-century traditional furniture moving into almost mid-century modern. Let's see if I can find some of our almost. Yeah, okay. Almost mid-century modern. Not quite. We are just shy of the MCM period. However, because it's a decorating book, we're getting awfully close, because the decorating books were usually at least a year or two ahead of what you would see in a private home. And finally, the one we are going to take a look at today, the Ethan Allen Treasury. And this is Ethan Allen Treasury of American Traditional Furnishings. No, American Traditional Interiors. There we go. And this is the one we are going to take a look at today. This is the 68th edition, which only means that it came out in 1968. I do not believe there were 67 previous editions. So we're going to start with the cover. Notice this pattern on the cover. It's sort of florals in a nice long spiraling line. This was one of the earliest designs you saw in American fabrics and wallpaper. In fabrics, this would have been done in crewel embroidery. That's C-R-E-W-E-L, not C-R-U-E-L. It was usually done in reds, greens, and blues on a white or pale background. Very, very popular, very, very 16th to very early 19th century design. You saw it everywhere. And this is going to be our starting point. At the very beginning, the book opens up with some examples of furniture from some of the finest early American craftsmen. We're talking 18th century designers here. This first one is John Goddard. And John Goddard was a furniture designer from Newport, Rhode Island. The best of the American Chippendale furniture came from either Newport, as in John Goddard, or next up, William Savory, Philadelphia. The pieces were based on the work of Thomas Chippendale, and as we've discussed previously, Chippendale never actually built any furniture, he just wrote a design book. So craftsmen like Goddard and Savory took his designs and ran with them. And these were two of the best of the designers, and they represent two of the best schools of American Chippendale. Now, when I say schools, I don't mean like, colleges or universities. I mean traditions of American Chippendale. So we've got Newport, we've got Philadelphia. Next up, we have Duncan Phyfe. And there's a lot of Duncan Phyfe furniture in the White House, thanks to Jackie Kennedy's restoration. Phyfe worked in New York, upstate New York, and he created some really interesting pieces, delicate, lighter. And then we have Samuel McIntyre. And McIntyre was from Massachusetts, just outside of Boston in the Salem area. And as you can see, he was heavily influenced by Hepplewhite and Sheraton. And these were, in fact, the very, very top end of American craftsmanship. Well, this magazine, which is, in fact, an advertising piece, this is created by a furniture manufacturer in order to sell their goods. So it's interesting that they start off by going through some antique styles of furniture. This is 17th century. We're talking about some of the earliest furniture in the U.S. This would be Boston. The furniture here is going to strongly reflect the furniture that was being made in England at the time. And here we have yet another example. This is I don't want to say a kitchen, but it's probably a great room in a small house. In other words, the central room of a relatively primitive New England home, 17th century. This is the place where you cooked, where you ate. You probably slept in this room too. Nice examples. Next, we're going over to 18th century. This is, again, nice examples. You can see the rooms are still looking very European. The heavy paneling on the walls, it looks like a room in England would have looked, because that's what 17th century Americans were used to. Here we have another example of 17th century American taste. Again, heavy paneling, very European, very English looking. The furniture, of course, is American renditions of European furniture. These styles were popularized by Chippendale. He was British, but of course they would have been made in the U.S. But at this point, we're starting to see some changes. We're starting to see the emergence of American furniture as opposed to Anglo-American furniture. Here we go. This is late 18th, early 19th century. Bedroom, again, very European looking, but we're starting to see the touches of Americanism in it. Here we are moving off into the 18th century. This is described as American Victorian. Well, we need to get over that real fast. This is not what a Victorian room looked like. To start off with, a Victorian room would have had draperies on anything they could have covered in fabric. This doorway over here would have been draped off. The bookcase would have been draped off. The mantelpiece would have had swags of fabric on it. And there would have been little tchotchkes absolutely everywhere you looked. No two ways around that one. This was something that was, gosh, the Victorians loved their junk, and they had junk everywhere. You might have had a small table by a chair, but most of your tables would have been display tables for the purpose of showing off your junk. It was just their taste, their aesthetic. Clutter was something very desirable to them. So the clean lines of this room, the white woodwork and white walls, well, actually I think the walls are probably pale blue. No, that would have just repulsed the Victorians. They would have wanted prints and patterns, fancy wallpaper, brightly colored floral rugs, brightly colored upholstery on the furniture. No, this is sort of a Victorian room that has been cleaned up, sanitized, and left to sit in a bucket of bleach for a week or two. Now, over here, we have a style of furniture that is just that. It is a style of furniture, but it's not a decorating style. This is Pennsylvania Dutch. In particular, these blanket chests with the hex symbols on them. Very popular Pennsylvania Dutch pieces. Now, the Pennsylvania Dutch were German immigrants. They were not Netherlandish people. The Dutch comes from Deutsch, meaning German. And they didn't have a decorating style. These are plain people, and plain has a different meaning for them. As you can see from their blanket chest, it's pretty elaborate. For them, plain, it's almost a moral term. It means not fancy, not pretentious. A Pennsylvania Dutch interior is frankly nothing more than a traditional American country or American farmhouse interior with a few specialized pieces. Even if you wanted to do your entire home in Pennsylvania Dutch, I just don't think you could. And over here, we're looking at another piece of styling. Well, they're calling it styling. That, in fact, is more sort of types of furniture than an actual decorating style, and that's Shaker. The reason for this is the Shakers lived in large collective communities, in sort of Shaker abbeys, if you will. Men lived on one side, women lived in the other, but not private homes. So they would not have had interiors. This is the interior of a private home. No, that's not how they lived. They lived collectively in large communities where they all shared the same living space. So a Shaker living room, if you will, would rather look like an auditorium. Again, individual pieces of shaker furniture might be something you could incorporate into an American country home, but you wouldn't be able to do your entire house in shaker furniture. They just did not have private homes, so consequently they didn't have the furniture necessary to stock a private home. Next up, we have American provincial, and this is what I would just call American traditional or American country. This is actually a very good rendering of this. They did like painted paneling. They either did this with whitewash or they did it with milk paint. It was very much a thing. Also, notice this beautiful Windsor chair. They loved their Windsor chairs. These chairs were inexpensive, durable. You know, your great-great-grandchildren will be sitting in them. You can get them easily today. And anyone who has seen the videos I have done up in the chair loft at Lutz's Antiques will be able to tell you you can still get very nice Windsor chairs for very little money. And this, as I said, this is a nice rendering. This is what an American farmhouse or middle-class home would have looked like back in the early 19th century. It's a very good representation. This is the first of our images of living rooms in this magazine. And as you can see, very late 60s in terms of the color palette. This sort of yellowish gold along with, brick, cinnabar. It's hard to tell because even though this is a professional photograph, the light has been severely impacted by all of this yellow gold. We have a piece of green painted furniture here, rather looks like milk paint, then this sage green piece, and again, more gold right in here. So, odd. Just in terms of decorating theory, this is very odd. We have a piece here that is sage green, a gray green, in no way tying it into any of the other colors in the rest of the room. Let's take a look at this. It's just not linking up with anything. It's sitting there, sort of like a little island of unrelated color. The cinnabar piece is picking up the tones of the wood. I just don't know what they were thinking of when they put this color palette together. We also have this strange little mint green pillow. I don't know why that is there. Oh, and one of the things I noticed throughout this entire magazine is we have artificial flowers and artificial plants stuck on the wall. Very odd indeed. Must have been a 60s thing. I personally do not remember that. Thank God. Next up, another green and gold combination. This one, there are a number of decorating mistakes that are very obvious. First of all, we have a gold sofa. By the way, the sofa is actually nice, as is the chair. This is a nice, classically styled set. Gold sofa in front of a gold wall so that the sofa is just sort of fading right into the wall. There's no contrast there. So the wall is not highlighted. The furniture is not highlighted. Same with the chair. Just sort of fading into the rug. Again, There's no contrast to give either one of these any life. Then we have this stripe piece, looks like black and white and gold striped wallpaper, with a little wrought iron shelf that disappears into the striped wallpaper. This is just my idea of really, really bad design. This painting, which ought to be a focal point in the room, again, is lost in this sea of gold. I don't even know what this is. This is, I don't know. A wall sconce? Nobody ever made a wall sconce like that. This is not an antique piece. This is not a reproduction of an earlier style. That is just strangeness. So I would have to say, that is just what not to do when you're decorating. This, however, is much nicer. I expect these were all put together by the same designer, so it's interesting that this one is a much better piece from a design point of view. You have this same, remember that floral design we saw on the cover of the magazine? The same sort of floral design, the red, white, and blue, very appropriate colors for an American country interior. Picking up the red chairs over here, the blue, I think that's blue, painted paneling, blending into a blue carpet, so that's fine. We have an interesting piece over here, a lot of stuff going on with this, and then in the background we have our Windsor chair, which of course you're going to want in any American traditional interior. But this is, in fact, nice design. We have the chairs picking up an accent color in the sofa. Again, the sofa colors are picking up the blues. The yellow, I don't know where that comes from, but in fact, it's not spitting at anything else. So, hey, a little punch of color, why not? We are not looking at an image that is just one color fading into the next. It's visually interesting. The only thing I don't like about that, let's get over here so you can see this. This picture is very inappropriate for this room. This is an example of your art not matching the rest of your house. In a room like this, you would probably want either an 18th century mirror, because that's what they put over their fireplaces, or you would want a more classical portrait, an oil portrait, or possibly even a nice primitive piece. That doesn't go. Otherwise, this is a very well put together room. Okay, once again, we have some nice furniture simply blending into the background. In this case, the sofa is blending in to the gold wainscoting and blending in to the gold rug. I don't understand why a furniture manufacturer would want to do that. You would think they would want their furniture to stand out a little more, but apparently not. Then we have this green and white piece, which doesn't seem to go in this room at all. It's not in the same tones. An accent piece in this room should be probably red. I would go with some shade of a deep red, maybe a blood red, just against all that gold, not green and white. The art on the wall, nice classical stuff. The lamps, although they are different, have the same shades. It is a very structured, a very squared off classical design. So with a design like this, you just can't break the rules. We have this strange green pillow over here. It doesn't match the green of the chair. I don't know what they were thinking. I don't know why the green is in there. The green is a mistake. Again, gold sofa against gold background, another mistake. And over here we have even more gold. And of course we have this brick or cinnabar color. Now I can't complain too much about this. It's dull. There's nothing in here that jumps or pops because we've got the gold and white, the cinnabar, which is not all that different from the gold. It's not giving it much punch. Oh, we have some nice art here. The art goes with the room, but the whole thing is just a little too matchy-matchy for my tastes. All right, once again, gold and white, and green. For some reason, this decorator was hopelessly in love with gold as the primary color for a room and green as the accent color, despite the fact that not every shade of green does well with gold. In fact, not every shade of green does well with every other shade of green. So, I don't know what to say. This decorator seems to be functionally fixed. All right, probably same decorator, but now we're seeing some improvement. We've got that cinnabar color on the wall, and over here, which is a good move, we've picked up this color on the other side of the room. Nice, finally catching on. The sofa, let's get in here. This seems to be a gold and white damask design. Classically styled, nice piece of furniture. And the lighter colors are being picked up by this painting above it. Good job. We still have the green rug. We still have the absolutely ubiquitous green chair, but we're definitely seeing some improvements here. I guess the decorator is starting to catch on. And now, gosh, this is strange. This seems to be a dark sort of taupe color. Rather gray, but definitely some elements of tan or cafe au lait in here. Furniture, nicely styled, horrible fabric. My gosh, that just makes me want to close my eyes. One thing about this that's really nice is this collection of botanical prints. But just as I was saying before, not all shades of green can go together. We've got a wide variety of greens here. We have a chartreuse green here. We have a dark, almost hunter green in the background of these chairs. This much green, it starts to look like the Atlantic Ocean. You feel like you're swimming. We have a brown rug and this sort of bronze-colored occasional chair. I gotta say, this is a really unattractive room, and the biggest problem with this room, same as with the others, is the very weird color choices. And that was, in fact, not a thing in the late 60s. The late 60s, they just loved everything to be all matchy-matchy. And in this case, it was not. Late 60s would have been a sofa and a matching chair, a chair in a contrasting color of exactly the same style, which this is not, a pair of lamps matching the sofa and chairs. No, this is definitely not late 60s. Okay, a nice little vignette. We have a gold background. We have a sofa in a Chippendale style. It's got a print on it, but because the print is very small, the overall impression is more of tweed than actually a printed fabric. We have the gold carpeting, but overall, this is not doing too badly because, again, we have contrast between the sofa and the wall behind it, between the white lampshades and the wall behind it, between the painting and these sconces. Again, this is not an accurate representation of antique sconces. I don't know why people bother to do that. If you're going to put up candles on your wall, at least use candle holders that actually existed at some point in history. Nice still life. Overall, much, much better. Same thing with this one. This seems to be that sort of taupe, maybe even sage green background, but because our sofa is lighter and there is more contrast, we have a much more attractive scene here. We have a matching pair of lamps that was very 60s with matching shades. They are in yellow, which is being picked up by this stuff on the coffee table, and also the still life in the background. Notice the floral arrangement on the coffee table, very low. If you're going to put flowers on a coffee table or a plant on a coffee table, you really don't want to get above maybe 8 inches in height. Anything other than that, and you're really throwing off the alignment of the room. All right, now this is just gross, but I wanted to show you this because this is the kind of furniture Ethan Allen was really known for. It was colloquially known as early American. This was not early American furniture. In the 17th, 18th, early 19th century, stuff like this did not exist. This style of furniture was born in the mind of an Ethan Allen designer sometime in the 1960s. I have no idea why they thought it was early American. Just your guess is as good as mine. The room is a hodgepodge. It looks like it was just thrown together. We've got yellow, we've got red, we've got green and yellow. We have, what is this, pink? Who knows? This looks like something that a kid would do with a coloring book. Not an attractive room at all, but I wanted to finish on this picture just so you could see the furniture that Ethan Allen was famous for. So when you find me saying, ugh, Ethan Allen furniture is so not me, this is what I'm talking about. Well, we've got plenty more, including some interiors that are really starting to look late 60s to my eye, and we are going to continue with this another time. So, have a terrific day, and we are going to do a slideshow on the way out, mostly because I'm focusing on this ersatz early American furniture, and we need to get the taste of that out of our mouths. So, I will see you all later.